I am glad for seeing you all today. And if you have a little bit of a problem understanding my little accent, that's because I'm from Jamaica. But if you're in Jamaica, I would not have an accent. So I want to welcome you all here today. And today's service is going to be a little bit different, or sermon. It's not going to, it's a sermon, but it's going to be a sermon in conversation. And being that today, Valentine's Day is coming up, a day that is centered around love. And love, even though it's a simple four-letter word, it is a very complex word, because not everybody understands love the same way. Does that make sense? So being that Valentine's Day is Thursday, I thought it would be appropriate for us to have this discussion on love and marriage, and what does that actually looks like. Because believe it or not, in our culture, there is a lot of people that are struggling in their marriages, both in and outside of the church. And it's alarming that the divorce rate in the church is as high, or not higher, than in the world. So I think it's a conversation. I know it's a touchy-feely type of conversation, but, you know, I think if we don't discuss it in the church, then we get misinformation the wrong way. Does that make sense? So with me today, I'm going to have Pastor Keith and his lovely wife, Evangelist Zetre. Would you join me up here? And also Pastor Bill and Pastor Paula. There's a saying that goes in the world, or that goes like this: if you want to be a millionaire, you hang around people who know how to handle money. You don't hang around people who do not know how to save. Does that make sense? Because you're going to end up being a squanderer. I believe that the same thing applies, that in our relationship, if we want to have a strong marriage, because there is no perfect marriage. Every marriage has their struggle. And it's how we deal with the struggle, I believe, that counts. So if we want to have a strong marriage, I believe we hang around people that have strong relationship. Does that make sense? I don't hang around with Joe Schmo down the street who doesn't know what time to go home, or forgot that he has a responsibility at home, because that's the way I'm going to end up. So I do believe that it is vital that we hang around people who have demonstrated faithfulness in their marriage. And if I could say, combined with Pastor Bill, Pastor Paula, and Evangelist Zetre together combined, they've been married for over 65 years. So we're looking at 30-something years. 36. And Pastor Bill? And 30. Okay? So we are in for a treat today, I believe. All right? So sit back, relax, and listen. It's a conversation. And if you have a question, hold on to it. We'll answer it. Okay? All right? So here we go.
I don't think he wants me to talk.
Well, we could share. We could share. We could share. All right. So as I said, and each one of you could answer the question, because I don't think there is any just one answer to this question. And my question is kind of deep. So here's the first question. How would you define love? And what does that look like in your life? So it's a two-part question. So anyone can begin, the ball's rolling by answering the question. How do you define love, and what does it look like for you in your life?
Well, first of all, love isn't a romance movie. It's not a fairy tale. Love is, you know the sign that says love is patient, love is kind? Well, we look at that and it is those things, but it's those things not just when things are all sunshine. It's those things, it's being able to be those things when not just the good, but the bad and the ugly are there as well. Amen. Not easy, but love isn't easy.
Love is work. If I define it and put it in one word, love is work. You have to work at it. But that's with anything in life. You have to work hard on your job if you want a promotion, yes? You work hard when you get a new job. It's work. You're working towards loving more, understanding more, giving more. But it's a job. It's not like, okay, we're married. You know, it's not, it's a job. It's work. And with God's help, you work it through with your partner. And you accept them for who they are. Like I always tell my husband, God made you just for me because nobody else will put up with me. He knows how to put up with me. Anybody else, I probably wouldn't be sitting up here right now. But just if you don't get anything, it's work. It's love and it's work. It's understanding. It's growing. Am I answering too much? It's understanding each other and willing to accept each other. Like Paula said, the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's what love is. But then that's how God loves us. Our good, our bad, and the ugly.
Well, it sounds like she's saying it's unconditional. But truly, when you talk about love, you talk about marriage, and you talk about relationships, it requires a lot of different things. For the most part, I think, like she said, patience. But as well, you have to accept one another for who they are. The one thing about it, when you can say you love somebody, but when you start living together, it's a whole other ball game. Because your habits and their habits may be completely different. Depending on how they grew up, depending on what they did. You know, I know us as men sometimes, maybe our mothers might have did most things for us. May not have a lot of abilities in terms of house cleaning and washing and stuff like that. In my situation, I had to do it all, so it didn't matter. But sometimes that's the case. So it may be the wife doing all that stuff. But the thing about it, I think, is the most important thing about love is you take people for where they're at. And understand that it may be a gradual progression for you to be able to start to coexist. You know, because in the beginning it can be very stressful. Because you're trying, like I know, if I think about earlier days, we used to have a lot of arguments in regards to the house cleaning. You know what I'm saying? And it can get real deep. No, seriously. No. Because everybody's habits are different. You grow up different. But that's a part of accepting the person for who they are. Because over a period of time, if you try to browbeat somebody, oh, look, you need to do this, you do that, there's going to be a problem. There's going to be friction. But if you accept, okay, that it may be gradual and over a period of time, you know, it gets like other things, like a great wine, it gets better with time, you know. You got to look at that relationship the same way. And it requires one to have patience and one to have understanding and to give it time with experience, and things will get better.
That's right.
Well, it also requires a bit of almost humor. You know, we don't hear about Noah's wife. And what she must have thought when he said, hey, hon, God told me to build this big boat and fill it with 2 of every animal and bring you and the kids and their wives into it. And can you imagine her saying, And you're how old? And how many animals did you say you wanted in this? But yet, he was considered righteous before God. You know, it's that, I think you're absolutely out of your mind, but okay. One day Paula came home and said to me, hey, I'm going off to South Africa with Barb for a couple of weeks. Okay, have fun. It is also caring about the other person and their dreams and their desires. And then on the days when they don't feel well, you see that, and you step up to the plate, you do what needs to be done. Regardless of anything else, you step up and you take care of them. The sickness and health, richer and poorer, better and worse, it all comes. And how you survive it, that's love.
Wow, this is not like I see in the Hallmark movies. Love is hard work. Love is also sacrificial, if I could summarize what I thought I was, what I heard. And it requires patience. So love is an action word. It requires work. As they were speaking, I'm thinking about like a fireplace. You know, when you build a fireplace, you start out with kindling, and then you put a log to it. And that fire could be very nice, or it could be very deadly, depending on how you control the fire. Does that make sense? So love is something like keeping that fire burning. How you could either smother the fire, you could either let the fire explode and burn down the whole house, or you could let the fire glow. It's all on how you handle it. So thank you for responding to that question. So my second question is this. Many people enter marriage with high hope and expectation. How many of you got married with high hopes and expectation? But with very little direction for their marriage. So let me ask you this. Are there any practical principles that you know of in your personal life, in your married life, that can improve one's marriage and make it that much more joyful? I didn't say happy, but joyful. So from your married life, being that, you know, people enter into marriage with high expectation, but very little direction. I may emphasize this. Sometimes I see it, we spend more time on the wedding day than on the marriage. We spend so much time on what dress we're going to wear, what suit we're going to wear, who's going to be the flower arrangement, everything. But very little time is spent on the marriage that's supposed to last forever. Does that make sense? So with so little direction, from your 37 years of being married, what practical advice can you give to us today?
Well, first of all, I think we have to understand too, a lot goes into what we've seen as children. You know, and do you have a basis there? Because sometimes some people may not have a basis of seeing what we would call maybe a good marriage or a marriage in general, depending on if there's both a man and a woman in place in terms of two parents or one parent or whatever. So in thinking, we have to understand this. First of all, the basis for most of us, we mimic our parents or what we may see. But I noticed that in my situation, it's a lot different. Because my parents, they were in place, but I know they did a lot of arguing. You know what I'm saying? I noticed that a lot. A lot of arguing, a lot of stuff going on back and forth, a lot of difference of opinion. And I took from that, that's the one thing I didn't want to do. You know? So I based my understanding of those kind of trying to get along on some of the things that I've seen and some of the things that I would like my marriage to look like. And so a lot went into that. And as far as the point is, don't say anything that you can't take back. Because sometimes we'll allow ourselves to say something that would be very damaging. So you got to be very careful as to what you say. Because, like I said, you can't take it back. You may be forgiven, but it's not forgotten. You know what I'm saying? So it's very important that we be careful in the heat of an argument or whatever. Sometimes, I found too, we have to understand somebody sometimes just got to not say anything. You know, like, okay, I see you going through something, honey. I'm just let you go ahead, and I'm just going to listen. Because sometimes they don't want an answer. You know, and we misunderstand that.
Who's they?
But you learn that over a period of time. You make, I'm the type, I'm going to always,
Hello.
I'm going to always trying to, I call myself somewhat of a humanitarian, and I take it in a lot of ways. So if somebody's having a problem, I'm going to try, okay, let me try to deal with a solution. That's the type of field I've been in, always trying to handle solutions. But sometimes you don't need a solution. Sometimes you just got to hear it and say, okay, and leave it at that. And so that's what I've learned over a period of time.
I'm laughing because he's the laid back one. On the other hand, I'm not. But I had to learn that my mother was a single parent, so my dad wasn't anywhere around. So I didn't know what it took to love a man. In fact, I didn't know how to love myself. So that's the first thing. You have to learn how to love yourself. I found that when I learned how to love God, then he taught me how to love myself. And then once I loved God and loved myself, I was able to love somebody else. But before, I was not in that state. But I also find as being married, like my husband was saying, if you're arguing, sometimes you have to stop. You know how they tell you when you're a little kid, when there's a fire, you stop, drop, and roll? Sometimes you have to stop and sit back and be like, okay, why don't we talk about this tomorrow? You'll be at a better mindset. I'll be at a better mindset. Our spirit won't be all over the place. Because think about it. I have to say this. The devil wants you to react. Because if you're reacting and you don't stop and think, then he got you. You're going to say, brrr, flim, flam, flim, flam. And then after it leaves your mouth, you're going to be like, dang it, I didn't want to say that. But because you're not thinking, and you're at a state of emotional, and the devil's like, don't let him get away with that. No, you got something to say. Say what you have to say. And I'm only talking about me. But I learned that you have to be, like my husband said, be quiet. Sometimes you have to be like, let's talk about this tomorrow. And then when tomorrow comes, you're calmer. You've thought about it. You've slept on it. You've mulled it over. And you're like, remember what we were talking about last night? Well, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I was wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have said it that way. But I get what you're saying. And sometimes as human beings, we don't want to do that because we want to be right. And when you're in a marriage, it's not about who's right. And it's not about who's wrong. It's about, okay, together, what are we going to do about this? How are we going to figure this out?
Yeah, I think it's not going in. I mean, I think a lot of people have, like Pastor Earl was saying, it's not like the Hallmark movie. People have unrealistic expectations. And also people tend to, the person they were before you married them is going to be the person they are after you marry them. Like, if you think you're, if you think you're going to change every bad, I'm not saying you can't, they won't change some habits that you don't like, but if you think they're going to change every habit you don't like, that's just not realistic. Plus, what if they think what you want them to change, they think they want you to change? Like somewhere there's a disconnect there, and you've got to compromise. You got to consider, you have to go into marriage realizing it's a partnership and it is work, and that there's going to be compromises, and go in realizing that there are things you're going to argue about, but there's things that aren't worth arguing about. Not everything is worth arguing about. They say pick your battles with your kids. Pick your battles in any relationship. You're not going to say everything you're thinking to your boss at work. You're not, I mean, when you're aggravated or annoyed or stressed, why would you do that to your spouse? Like, not everything you think should be verbalized. Because like she said, the devil creeps in too, and wants you to say those things. They want you to say hurtful things. So not everything that crosses your brain should come out of your mouth.
There was a 1970s song called You and Me Against the World. And that's truly a marriage. And it's you and me against our parents. Because, and I think there's a question later, but, it's not who wins or loses in a argument, discussion, or decision. We have to win. Believe me, if that doesn't happen, well, in the first 5 or 10 years. It does take a while to really get that, and get that understanding working. And as Pastor Earl said, weddings are a barometer for a marriage, because I can see a lot of it. Girls, it's not all about you. You may have dreamed about it from the time you could wear your first dress. And the guy just accepts the fact that he's going to get married. But it's about what you two want. It's about what you two decide for your wedding, your celebration, the ceremony, all of that. It's not what your mother wants, his mother wants, aunt, uncle, cousin, sister. The least number of people involved in going to get a wedding dress, the better. I drove Paula all over eastern Pennsylvania so she could go into bridal shops back when we were at that stage. And our families just stood back and supported us. We could write a book about everything that went wrong with our wedding, except one thing went right. And that's the only thing that's important. We got married that day, and God saw to it that we stuck together. Thanks to Him, we have stuck together for 30 years. Because we couldn't have done... Me? No. I screwed up too many times.
But one thing I wanted to say too is Pastor Earl mentioned joy versus happiness. There's a big difference. You're happy when the sun is shining. You're happy when you get flowers or a gift or whatever, and those are nice, kind, loving things to do for one another. But that's happy. To me, like, joy is like when we say about our joy comes from the Lord. Well, the Lord doesn't say that everything's going to be sunshine all the time either, whether it be with life in general or with your marriage. Joy to me is kind of like that security blanket that you have in Christ. You have a security blanket in your spouse. It's that comfort that comes from knowing that they are there for the good of all. It's not that dating thing of, especially when you're first dating, it's not that, oh, I better not say this, or I better not say that, or I better not do this, or what if I do that? Are they going to break up with me? You know, what, you know, it's security. It's joy comes from the comfort and the security of knowing that that person is there for you through thick and thin.
I just want to add one thing that I find that a lot of people get hung up in. Birthdays, Valentine's Day, Christmas, anniversaries. Those come once a year. They don't define your marriage. Don't get hung up. Like, we never remember our anniversary. The best man at our wedding would always call us. He stopped calling and we stopped remembering. Those little things, they're not important. I find so many people have arguments about, oh, you missed my birthday. You missed my anniversary. You missed it already. Those are just things. It's about what you do for each other all year round. Those are just things. Don't get hung up in birthday. I've seen so many people have argued and separated and have gotten divorced because you don't remember your anniversary. You're still together, right? You know, I used to watch a show and they would argue, and at the end they would say, and we still together. Don't get hung up in those things. They're just things that keep you off-ended, to keep you from what's really going on. And it's about the love that you share, not about these hallmark moments. Yes? I just wanted to throw that out there because I just had a lady at work and her and her husband are arguing because he forgot her birthday. Yes, it's a big deal, but is it enough to argue about? You want to argue about something? Hey, where's the mortgage payment? My car don't work. We need to do. You understand? You have to pick. There's things you don't need to argue about. And that, to me, is high on the list. Those are just dates. As long as you love each other and take care of each other all year round, those little dates don't really mean anything. And how much stuff, look, do I look like I need a box of candy? No. I don't like flowers. They cost too much money and they die too quick. We can go out to eat. You know, I'm just saying. I'm not going to say anything.
So I've been threatened if I were to buy a dozen roses for Valentine's Day. I've been very much threatened since we were dating.
Yeah, the price is like 10 times more than any other time of year. Like, to me, that's just insane and foolish.
Actually, I'm taking her out for dinner and a movie on Friday night. We're going to a potluck dinner at a church and a movie in the basement.
Very economical.
Just don't get hung up on it. Don't let them be the end all and the begin all. That's all we're saying.
So some of the things that, again, I believe that I hear in helping to improve our marriage, well into marriage, such high expectation. One of them, Pastor Keith lead off with, is know how to control your lips. And I think everyone echoed around that sentiment. And so then I don't think it's strange that when we look into God's Word, James talked about controlling the tongue. Because James says here in James chapter 3, beginning at around verse 5, he said, so also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. And the tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life. So what is God's word telling us? We need to know how to control our tongue. So I think that's one of the advice that we can apply in our life. If we look at the life of Jesus Christ, he did not respond to every question that was said to him when he stand before Pilate. Pilate said, answer me. Don't you know I have the power to crucify you? Or to give you life or something to that effect? Jesus didn't respond. He responded when it was appropriate, and he told Pilate, The only authority you have has been given to you from my Father. In other words, you don't have authority over me. But he did not respond to it. He chose his word wisely. And I think that's one of the things that in our relationship, know how to control your emotion. Don't let your emotion control you, I should say. But that is hard to do in and of ourselves, as Pastor Bill said. If it wasn't for God in his life, they wouldn't be together today. So we have to allow the Holy Spirit to control us. We have to be spirit-led instead of emotional-led, because our emotion can get the best of us. Does that make sense?
Hey, that sounds like a topic for the men's group for March.
All right, so here's the next question. In your opinion, what are the top 3 challenges in marriage? And what will be the solution in resolving those challenges? So, in your opinion, top 3.
Well, I think one of them is holding on to things like a grudge, like holding on to things that the other person has done, and then you don't say anything, and then all of a sudden you become explosive about it. Well, if you didn't tell them that that was a problem for you all along, now today you did something and you're going to explode about it. Like, today is today's problem. If you didn't deal with it then, too bad, so sad. You know, like, you should have dealt with it then. Don't bring up things that have happened in the past so much. Like, don't say, well, you always, or you did this, and you did this, and you did this. They had no idea that you were even annoyed about that. Like, don't bring that in to today.
Yeah, guys can be dense. Subtle clues don't always work with us. Sometimes you really have to be blunt. I even go to God in prayer sometimes and say, look, you know I'm dense. Just give me clear indication. Don't be hint. Just give it to me. And you know what? He has. Because I've been honest with him and said, you know, I'm dense. Just tell me. And her. I've said to Paula, you know, don't give me hints. You want to give me a hint? Give it to me in a piece of paper. We were talking about this last night. I said, you know, the best thing to do, guys, if you want that fishing reel and you know exactly which one you want, print it out and leave it on the table. That way, she knows exactly what you want. Or girls, you want to get him exactly what he wants? Great. Write the card, say, I'm taking you to get the reel you want. And then you walk into the store and he goes to the shelf and buys it. And everybody's happy. He's got exactly what he's looking for. You've given him that gift. Works great. Doesn't have to be a surprise.
But also, like I was saying though about bringing up stuff in the past, if things are a recurring problem that you have brought up over and over again, there comes a point where that's not healthy anymore. There comes a point where you need to sit down when you're calm and have a real discussion about it and come to a solution. Whether it's his way, your way, some compromise in between. You can't just keep rehashing and reliving the same problem over and over again. There eventually has to be a solution. We were talking, they have on our electric sign at work, they're big on a suggestion program, and so there's a big sign as you drive into the depot that says, "Don't admire a problem, fix it." So, like, eventually it has to be fixed.
Okay, so I'm hearing like communication is one big challenge in marriage. I think that's what I'm hearing from mobility folks. Go ahead.
Well, I'm gonna get a little deeper than that. I think we kind of covered that a lot, but I think we have to understand too that with marriages today and things that go on today, a big problem is lust of the flesh. People go outside their marriages. It's being something that seems to be customary, and it seems to be something that's okay. It existed long ago, and especially from different ends. But at the same time, it destroys a lot of marriages, a lot of children's lives. And I think the biggest issue is when you do get married, you got to make a commitment to yourself. Not only as per se your marriage vows. There are vows involved, but I think the most important thing is to yourself being committed and say, God, I will not do such whatever it is. And I think that a lot of times that doesn't happen. So I think that's a big one when it comes to things that and on the news you hear it all the time, somebody here and there, regardless of what matter of status you have in the world, how much money you have, how much money you don't have. It's an ongoing problem with people stepping outside their marriages. The other one I think is very important is sometimes just the fact of the financial end of it. Poverty or end of marriage in the beginning, not having the kind of money you expect to have, because when you're young, you're in the process of getting jobs, moving forward, but it takes time before you go up the ladder and make more money and more money. But sometimes, depending on what you're used to, as a wife or as a husband, you want to get there all at once. And that can cause a lot of problems too, because sometimes you may go through some tough times. I talk to a lot of people that remember the tough times and now remember the good times because they've gotten to a point where they feel financially stable. But it doesn't come overnight, because for one thing, we're wasteful. When you start, I know we were when you first start, you may have this, have that, and you're not budgeting like you should, or other things, and we got to have this and got to have that, but then that has to be paid for. So it's in time. I think that if you hold on and don't get in these arguments over financial issues, you can last that way. So those are the two ones I have. Anyway.
Also, to touch a little bit about what my husband said about infidelity, a pastor told me a long time ago, two things he told me. If you mess with the mess will mess you up. You're looking at somebody else's yard, the grass is all green, it's beautiful, the curves, all of that. But if you water your grass just as much as you're looking at your neighbor's grass, your grass will be beautiful. So in layman's term, love who you have, appreciate what you have, because what that person has over there, you don't know what it is. It look good, it walk good, it talk good, it dress good, but it's not for you. You don't want something that's not for you. Sometimes we look with our eyes, like, kind of cute. But is that for you? You have someone already. Nourish that person. Love on that person. Learn about that person. We've been together for 37 years. We don't know everything about each other. We don't got it all together. We have our issues. But you have to pour into that person. Just as much as you're pouring into that grass over there that looks good. Looks are very deceiving. Everything that's shiny is not gold. And then another thing too we have to remember, we come into relationships with a lot of baggage. She's not the one that hurt you before you met her. He's not the one that hurt you before you met him. You have to tell yourself, okay, this is my husband now, or my boyfriend, preferably your husband, and he didn't do anything to me. So I don't have to hate him already. You know, some women, you know what I'm saying? Someone's done something to you, so the next person that comes, ooh, they gonna get it. I ain't putting up with this. I ain't doing this. I ain't picking up your clothes. I ain't cooking every night. I ain't. But not realizing he didn't do anything to you. So why wouldn't you do those things in love? I love to cook for my husband. There's times I don't want to cook. You guys have a sandwich. Love you. You know, and he can cook. But I'm just saying, you know, sometimes you come home from work, and my husband knows when I come home from work, I don't want to talk. Because I work at a high school and I'm talking all day long. I'm solving problems all day long. When I get home, or I play this little dumb game on my phone. It's not asking me no questions. It's not demanding anything. Only what I'm doing to it. Sometimes you have to learn how to woosah. Just give me a minute. It's okay to say that. I just need a minute. He knows me well. Other than that, I'm like, what? Man, get out of here. I ain't doing it. And then I go in the other room and God said, oh, you're not doing what? What you not doing? Oh, I'm going in there and I'm going to cook right now. You get what I'm saying? So we have to be careful what we say and try to get rid of that old baggage. That's history. You can't change any of that. You're not even with that anymore. You're with someone new. So don't bring old bags. Like God said in the Bible, you can't pour new wine in old vessels. Why? Because they crack. The same with relationships. You're bringing old stuff into a new relationship. It's going to crack because there's certain things you don't want to put up with because you put up with it before. But you didn't have to do it with that person because he's not even doing that. Or she's not even doing that. And I'm getting a little excited, so.
Just two quick things. One is, that's what we were saying about everything looking good. Our first New Women's study back in January was talking about, we talked about social media and how we don't...
Facebook.
Yeah. And depression is higher than ever, they say, and the more time you spend on social media, they say the more people are depressed depending on the hours that they spend on social media. But what do we put on social media a lot of the times? We put on there that the best pictures of our family, the best pictures of that birthday party or whatever that we did for our kids. You don't see what happened before or after. You didn't see the meltdown that happened with the kids before you walked out the door to get that portrait. You didn't see the meltdown in the store when it was picking out outfits, or that morning, I don't want to wear that. I'm not wearing that. I'm tugging at the clothes. I'm not doing that. This one poking this one. 2 minutes as the photographer's trying to take the picture. We don't see that part. So everything isn't what it seems, like Zethray said. So you're not living with that person. So you don't see it all. You're only seeing the best. You're not seeing a true, real picture. And with finances, don't expect to walk into marriage and have your home look like your parents' home. It's just not realistic to get married, especially if you're not having established careers and have established careers for a while, that you've had time to build up savings. If you're getting married when you're young, especially, you can't. Your parents didn't have what they have now when they were your age either. You know, so don't expect to have the same level of stuff that your parents have when you first get married. You don't have the finances that they have, and they didn't always have those finances. We started out shopped in thrift stores, and we'd go to these dinners with this organization and stuff, with those parents a lot and stuff. I would still get compliments. Oh, what a pretty top, or what a pretty skirt, or whatever. I didn't tell them I bought it at Salvation Army. You know, our furniture was hand-me-down or Salvation Army. You cannot expect to have what your parents have when you don't have the income that they have now, and they didn't always have that income either.
And remember to share. That's very important, especially with your finances. Like after we pay all our bills, if there's $20 left, he get 10, I get 10. Or if there's nothing left, you have to know how to be good with that. Your bills are paid, you got gas in your car. Do you really need a pocket full of money? It's nice, but do you really need it? So you have to share. Find out who's good with the finances and who's not. That's very important, because if the not person is doing the finances, you're not going to have no money. You know what your role is. Like with my husband, he cooks, cleans, scrubs, does hair. I called his mother a lot. Thank you. And then I taught my boys how to cook, clean, scrub, and wash. So this way, if something happens to one of you, it's not like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I don't know what bills were paid. I don't even know what the checkbook is. How much money is in the account? Where is the account? What bank is it with? Is there any money in the account? You know, learn how to share the responsibilities, because that's real important. You know, you have some, sorry guys, you have some men that if their wife gets sick, they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. They don't know that the daughter has to be picked up at 5, or the son goes to gymnastics, or mother-in-law got to be, you know, they don't know none of that stuff. They come in, they sit down, you feed them, they go to bed. And then to flip this thing over, this new generation, some of these women can't cook, clean, scrub, or sew. They can't even hem. With the hem you put on the iron and just press it down. So, I'm just saying. Everybody say know your role, but try to know both. The finances, share them. You know, I know a lot of people, their husband have their bank account, they have their bank account. I don't understand that. So I don't want to step on nobody's toes. But to me, it works better when it's all together, because then you know what you have. Like somebody will pay their mortgage, or somebody. Then why don't you get married? If you're not going to pull your resources together. If I got 10, you got 10, we win. If I got 5, you got 5, we're great. If we don't have nothing, it's okay as long as I can get to work. I'm just saying.
Something that works too is having a main account that all the bills come out of, and then when you're a little bit more established, if you got a little extra money, to have those separate accounts where a little bit goes from his check into his account, a little bit goes into an account that I have, and that money is there, like, if you want to buy a gift and you don't want them to know about it, and you want to just go do something with your girlfriends or whatever, there's the amount of money.
Just hold on to that $10.
Yeah. So, but also with knowing roles and stuff, yeah, it didn't hurt that I made him do bills for a couple months, because I got a little aggravated one time. And I said then, here, you don't like the way I do it.
You do it.
Yeah, that lasted a couple months before he just finally said, please, please, please take it back. He really doesn't complain since then about it.
And all this is in love. These are things that as years go by, you'll learn them. But if you don't listen to anything else we said here, marriage is work. It's a job. It can either be a good job or it can be a bad job. But you have to work it out together. There is no right way. What works for us may not work for you. Or what works for them may not work for you. But you have to work at it to find out what works in your marriage. Respect each other. Love each other. Care for each other. good, bad, and the ugly. And it's going to be a lot of good, bad, and ugly. Our good, bad, and ugly was the beginning of our relationship. It's crazy. We had family members that didn't like, well, he had family members that didn't like me. And then at the time, I didn't care because I ain't like nobody. So what you, his sister? You ain't going to talk to me like that? So, you know what I'm saying? You have to watch family. Family will butt into your business. They mean well, but you have to work this out yourself. You can't take advice from a guy friend that's never been married. You can't take advice from a woman that's only had a boyfriend. The advice is totally different. We're married. We're not hooking up. This ain't no booty call. It's, can I say that? I'm trying to be real. I'm a no-frills person. I tell you like it is. Don't ask me if you don't want the truth. But it's a job. Just don't take advice from people that don't know nothing. You got a girlfriend? You can't tell me about my husband. You ain't got one. You a guy? You can't tell me about my wife because you don't have one. Girlfriend and wife is entirely different. This is for keeps. God made it where it's supposed to be forever and ever. Amen. Not just a whim. But just learn how to love each other. Find out what makes your wife smile. I'm going to say this. Women, I'm easy. You give me a nice card, oh, I'm good. If it's, I know it come from your heart, I'm a puddle. I don't have to have all this grandiose stuff. It's not important. Just give me you. Isn't there a song? Give me you. Just give me you. You believe in God, I believe in God. You trust God, I trust God. We're going to be okay. Just don't let this world define your marriage. That's the most important thing, because this world don't know what a marriage is. Everybody, do you. You like her? Hook up with her. You like him? Hook up with him. Yeah, you married? Okay. Not right now. You know, just find out what works for you. We can talk to you till we're blue in the face. But you have to find out, you have to work at what makes your spouse happy, and she has to work at what makes you happy. What I've gone through, you won't go through it.
It's the little things. It's not that, oh, he bought me a diamond necklace or I bought me a diamond bracelet or whatever. You know what?
It's a peppermint patty from the grocery store.
Yeah, that's easy actually.
Reese's Pieces.
Yeah, that's easy. You can walk in a jewelry store and pick out a beautiful piece of jewelry. It's not difficult. It might be expensive, but it's not difficult.
It's from the heart.
It's from the heart. When I went to South Africa, I was there for Valentine's Day. And somehow, although you have to understand, I'm through my suitcases a million times because they come down, I juggle stuff back and forth to get as much stuff in as I can for the kids. I mean, like we're talking, I move 4 ounces from here to here because there's no space in here, but there's extra weight, and there's space here, but less weight, and back and forth, and over and over again. So I'm through my suitcases a million times until I leave. Everyone's giving me more stuff to take. I find a way to get it in there, juggle.
And lift this 45-pound, 50-pound suitcase
Over
at
and
least
over
20 times to make sure you're just under the limit.
But I was there for Valentine's Day, and not that we're big on holidays and birthdays and that being right on the day and different things like that and stuff, but it was just sweet that somehow he managed to sneak in a Valentine's card into my suitcase that I found when I unpacked. You know, it's just the little things like that.
Okay, so the 3 things that are challenges in marriage, if I hear correctly, one is communication, one is finances. I didn't hear a third one. Say it again. Infidelity, yes, lust, exactly. How could I forget that one? when this is like our headlines that we see in our culture today. So communication, you're saying that goes a book that was written, women's are from Mars and men's are from Venus. Men and women, generally speaking, think differently. Men's mind is like a pancake, not a pancake, what do you call it, a waffle. You have different compartments. A woman's mind is like a spaghetti. They touch everything at the same time. Most men like myself, I can only do one thing at a time. So you give me one thing at a time, I'm good. Don't give me too many things at a time, I'm confused. A woman, on the other hand, can do many things at the same time, and sometimes they look like they got eyes in the back of your head. Because they can talk to you and have a conversation with somebody else all at the same time. I can't do that. So like someone said, I think it was Paula that said, understand your mate. And I think that's one of the key things when it comes to marriage, is as for a husband to study his spouse. Study her. Know what she likes without she have to say it to her. Know what her love language is like without she has to be telling it to us. But it takes time in observing our spouse. Does that make sense? Yeah. So as the scripture tells us that the woman or a weaker vessel, that doesn't mean that a woman is weak in strength. A woman are very strong, but to handle or treat them as very fragile. Does that? Oh, I'm speaking to the men. Okay. And for the men, our responsibility is to love our wife. There's nowhere in the Bible that the Bible tells that woman to love their husband.
What? No.
No. But the Bible says, God says, the scripture says, to love your wife as Christ loved the church. And when we look at how Christ loved the church, it's a sacrificial love. Christ is always putting himself second and putting the church first. So it is a self-given love. And that is not always easy. And that's why I have up there in 1 John 4:19, many other passages I could use, but it said how he loved us. While we were all messed up, Christ loved us. While we were doing everything under the sun that he did not like, he still loved us. And that's the love that in marriage that Christ wants us to use in our relationship. And it's not easy. But it's doable when Christ is in you. Does that make sense? When it comes to lust, another hot topic, button thing that happens in our marriage, because lust happens in many different fronts. Lust doesn't necessarily happen to go out and have a physical relationship with someone, but it also what they call lust of the eyes. And that's where Jesus brings up that, raise the bar a little higher in his Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5:27. He says, you have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with a lustful intent already committed adultery. So the conversation you might have at the water cooler with a friend, that water cooler conversation can turn into a lust if you're meeting the same person every day having the same conversation. Does that make sense? Or if you were looking, given the technological world that we're living in, where pornography can be a private institution, and it's ruling your life, it's controlling you, that's another form of lust.
Well, Pastoral, what you and Mama Z both brought up are covered under the 10th commandment. You don't desire what somebody else has.
Right.
It says all of this stuff, but at the end of the day, that 10th commandment is, if it's not yours, that's fine. Desire what you have.
Yeah. And so, yeah, communication is a key part of it. I'm learning in my own marriage life is that, yeah, my wife does speak different language from me, and I got to figure it out. So I got to study her to what she is communicating to me. And usually I would react in a way that, oh, you didn't say this. So I come to the understanding now, how can I communicate to her better that she can better understand what I am saying? So it's not finding fault as I used to in her communication. Well, you didn't say that. Backtracking that, turning that around to say, how can I say what I say to her to make it more clear? Same thing with her, with me, vice versa. So communication is a big thing in marriage, because sometimes what we intend to say is not the way it comes out, and the receiver who is hearing you can receive that much differently from the way you intended it. So we have to make sure that what we communicate or what we are saying is what we intend to say, and so a person will not take what we intend to say the wrong way. Am I making sense? See that? That's why I said I use that a lot. Am I making sense? Because I want to make sure that I'm connecting with you, and that I am making sense. Because if I'm not making sense, I don't need to be up here. So moving on, I know time is of essence. So the one, I wouldn't say the last, but one more question, and this is a touchy question. Very touchy question. But it does happen in life. It happens in the church. Sad to say. What advice would you give to someone who is in an abusive relationship?
I think for me, I grew up for a while with a stepfather that was abusive. And first of all, let me tell you, your kids aren't dumb. Your kids know the deal. Your kids know that that hole in the TV or the hole in that cupboard wasn't an accident. Physical or emotional, I'd say your first thing is love yourself enough to, I'm not saying necessarily jump right into divorce, but give yourself some physical distance if at all possible. Like, and then get some help, get some counseling. Because sometimes you need that space before you can work on it. And you shouldn't be in my opinion, you shouldn't be physically and emotionally abused in the meantime. But although the Bible says God hates divorce, if that other person, if you give them some time and distance and space, and they don't want to work on it, I don't think God wants us to be abused either. And think about your kids if you have kids. It's much easier on your kids to put some distance between you than it is for your kids to be living in the physical and the emotional abuse going on.
Any other thoughts?
When the pastor asked the question, the first thing that came to my mind, there was a movie that said, "Get out." That's the first thing that came to my mind. But Pastor had said something earlier. God says, love your wife as I love the church. There's nothing in there to say, beat your wife. Even though I didn't beat you, beat your wife. I just, that's all I can say is get out. Because God did not make you a battering. He didn't, be it male or female, because there's some females I've seen beat up on some men, and then they go home, we happy. No, black eye, busted lip, broken arm. I don't think that's love. And to stay somewhere where you're getting that on a regular basis, that's not God. God didn't build any of us to be beaten on. He said love, 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 not beat, beat, beat. And it's a touchy situation. And it depends on you. You know, sometimes our self-esteem can be low. Sometimes we may think nobody else will want us. Maybe this person is telling you, nobody else wants you. You might as well stay with me. That's a lie. The devil is a liar. No, that's not what God has for you. So I'm going to leave that alone. But it's still come in my mind. Get out.
Don't stay just for the kids.
If I'm not real, then...
Love your kids enough to move on.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, Bill. And all eyes that are closed are not sleeping. When Paul has said it with the children, just because their eyes are closed and the lights are out does not mean they're sleeping. They're hearing everything. They may be laying by your door. You don't know. And then they'll grow up, and daughters will think, oh, my mother got beat, so that's love. I'm going to find me somebody that's going to beat me. Oh, my mother beat up my daddy. I'm going to find a woman that's going to beat me. You have to be careful because these are examples that we are setting. That's not God. That's not what love is. That is straight out abuse. Yeah.
It said in 2 Corinthians, it says about don't be unequally yoked. Don't be yoked to a non-believer. It is not possible to say I am in Christ or with Christ and turn around and physically or emotionally or economically abuse your spouse or your kids.
And then stand up there and say, praise the Lord.
And if you have a pastor who says to you, well, it says right here, women submit to your husbands. Run. He is a false teacher. Get out. We had to work with a woman, and his pastor told her that, and it's a good thing Paula didn't find him because she would have taken her Bible and knocked him into the next month over that. Yes. Because that passage goes up about 2 pages on what a husband should do for his wife. It's about loving your wife, caring for your wife. You don't abuse your own body. Your wife is part of your own body. The two shall be made one. Jesus was clear on that. So you're not going to take a hammer and beat on yourself. You're not going to punch yourself unless you're completely not right in the head. And statistically, a woman will leave 7 times from an abusive relationship. That's an actual statistic. As friends and co-workers, family, it's not the time to judge. It is the time to give a safe space. To let them be in their own moment. Give them just a place to be safe. If they're on your property and staying in your home, you have a right to then say who approaches and who enters that property and who enters that home. We've been doing this for over 30 years. You got to create that safe space. But there is no right for economic, we talk about abuse and physical, but it's emotional and economic as well. And the kids don't stay together for the sake of the kids. Because they're hearing it. They're seeing it. Feeling it. that vibe in the house is bad. And, you know, even your parents may contribute to a bad situation, either set of parents. Parents can be the wrong people to go to. Brothers and sisters might be a lot more helpful. Cousins might be a lot more helpful. And that's also why there are caring people around. There are agencies out there. They're limited resources. But we have to love one another. That's what we're called to do. Whether it be our spouses, whether it be our neighbors. We have to love our neighbors as ourselves.
Amen. All right, so with that, time is coming down to a close. I say I thank you for sharing, and hope you got something out of it. And I'm including myself in that we can apply to our lives today. In that love, most of all, is hard work, it's self-sacrifice, it's self-sacrificial type of a love that we're speaking of. And that is what marriage is about, is that not only married, but if you're dating someone, in a relationship, it's in someone, it's seeing the needs of that other person first before yourself. Does that make sense? Again, when it comes to abuse, I don't encourage anyone to live in an area where they're going to feel like your life is being threatened. Run. Because if we are looking at marriage as the church, as Christ representing the church, he are married to the church, there's nowhere in Scripture where I see our Lord Jesus Christ abuse us. He loves us. He cherishes us. He protects us. And if we are to live in a relationship as we are in relationship with Christ, there's nowhere I can be one way in church and another way at home. I was what the Bible called an hypocrite, an actor. You pretend one thing and you live something else. And so many women in the church of Jesus Christ that living under abuse because your husband is acting one way and at home doing something totally different, and that woman has no place to go because she felt like she cannot talk real to someone. And I say to you, God is real. He's not a phony. So don't stay, and I'm saying it, don't stay in any relationship that is abusing you, whether that's being controlling, physically, mentally, or otherwise. Does that make sense? I'm all for marriage. Marriage is beautiful when we look at it through the lens of Jesus Christ. There's nothing like it. It is a great thing. But we have to see it and live it from his perspective. Does that make sense? Yes. So with that, I want to close with this word here in 2 Corinthians 2. 2 Corinthians 13, the very last chapter in 2 Corinthians. And if you know anything about the Corinth church, it was Corinth, it was a big metropolitan city. Everything goes on in that city. That's a letter where Paul was wrote to these believers living in Corinth. At the end of his second letter, he said to them, "Finally, brothers, rejoice. Aim for restoration and comfort one another. Agree with one another. Live in peace, and the God of love and peace will be with you." So I think when we look at it from a marital perspective, our aim is not, the first thing is to get a divorce, but to aim for restoration. If restoration is not possible, then you've done what you need to do. Does that make sense? All right, so let us stand to our feet, and I would invite you at this time.